Welcome back to the VET S.O.S podcast. Remember, don't drown in the sea of transition. Grab the VET S.O.S Lifeline. VET S.O.S is brought to you by the Who You Know Network and proud members of the Prairie Deck community. Today, we're sitting down with David Willis, co-host of the Homefront SITREP podcast. Man, this is a great show. If you haven't checked it out, you definitely need to. We had the honor of being on it, and really excited to get down here into this conversation to learn more about what they got going on with their show and what they're trying to accomplish. Here today, my brother Keith, as always. Keith, how you doing today?
I'm praying for no more technical issues like last episode, but hopefully doing well. We'll see.
We'll see. We'll see. Who knows? You know, Murphy decided to come out and play today, so
Yeah, I'm playing for a while. Yeah.
All right, so we got David, who's a Marine Corps veteran and the co-host of Homefront SITREP podcast, a show dedicated to bringing 501(c)s and veteran-owned businesses from around the country to tell their stories and what led them to give back to their communities and veterans. He has and still does work with several veteran organizations, always looking for ways to give back to the veteran community. How you doing today, David?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you guys for having me on.
Man, excited to get you on here and be able to sit down and talk one with a fellow podcaster, because it usually makes the job really easy, right? Because the other person knows how to talk.
Yes, sir.
Which is always good. And it's a fun community. I never wanted to be a podcaster. It wasn't a goal to be a podcaster, but now that we're doing it, I have so much fun doing this, and it's like, I know at some point I'll stop doing it, but for right now, it's just fun.
Oh, it definitely is fun. I mean, the community that, like, when I first started podcasting, I was like, man, what direction am I going to go? And then I met all these different veteran podcasters like Rich Lamonica from Misfit Nation, Adam Bird from Heroes Media Group, and the Triple Threat Vets podcast, and all these different veteran podcasters. I was like, man. And then we built the community, and now we have our Tip of the Spear Veterans Roundtable, which is the last Wednesday of the month, where we get all these veteran podcasters together and have them all, and we just talk about current events going on, and it's fun, it's amazing. I mean, if I need to reach out to somebody about something, I just call them up and say, hey, I got this issue, or I got this issue, and everybody's willing to help each other, and that's what I'm all about, is helping others, and that's what I look for when I look for people to get in touch with.
No, absolutely, man. And the community piece is awesome. The willingness to help is just unbelievable. And just, I know when I started out reaching out to a couple people that have been doing it for years, and they just, openly shared information and how to do things and what they recommend. And I was amazed. It wasn't about competition. It wasn't about this or that. It was all, just, hey man, try this, try that, so, but let's go ahead and jump into your transition story, man. Tell us how your transition out of the military went.
So I served in the Marines from 97 to 01. So I got out August of 01, right before 9/11 happened. So I was on terminal leave. Got back home here in Barstown, Kentucky, where I'm born and raised, and got a job working in a factory, right? I didn't know what I was going to do, but I started working in a factory. It was a projection molding company. The big crates that the Navy uses on the ships that collapse. That's what I did. I was making those. So I was working there, and 9/11 happened, and I was on break, and I was watching the TV, and I called my mom. I was like, hey, be on the lookout for a Western Union. She goes, what do you mean a Western Union? So I was like, yeah, a telegram. They're going to probably recall me. I'm probably going back into the Marine Corps. And sure enough, I got the Western Union. Please come back to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina for combat refresher training. So I had a report date, and I did go back down, reported, and they put us with the Mobilization Support Battalion. And I did that until the end of 03 to 04. And once I got out the second time, that transition was hard, because back then they didn't have the TAPS classes and stuff like that. They didn't have that. It was basically, you turned your gear in and you just waited your time. You were called a short timer. You got out. So I didn't know what direction I was going to go when I got out the second time. Luckily, there was a lot of veteran service organizations locally, like, that I could go volunteer at, because you lose that sense of purpose, that sense of camaraderie that you had while you were in the service. So luckily I found that within the VSOs that I was volunteering for. One of them was Operation Victory, and what they did is they went in, found dilapidated homes here in Louisville, Kentucky, and tore them down and rebuilt them and give them to a homeless veteran. And the homeless veteran can live there permanently, or after 10 years, they could sell the home and do whatever they wanted to do with it after that. But uh, I got my kids involved when they got a little older, and I'd take them up there for demo days. We'd go in there and demo the drywall or the plaster, whatever they had on the inside. Took it down
Little
to
therapy,
studs.
huh?
A little therapy, yes. And I met so many people, like Miss America 2000, Heather French Henry. Her dad's a Marine, and I met her there. She was one of the head people that was, spearheading the Operation Victory, and met her. I met the commissioner of Kentucky Department of Veterans Affairs at the time, Major General Ben Adams. I met him there. So I met all these great people, and that's where I started building my network of people to be my tribe. Basically, if I had an issue or question, I was able to reach out to those guys and say, "Hey, this is what I got going on." And
Hold on a second. Hold on. Wait, wait. Are you telling me that Miss America is in your tribe?
Yes, Heather French Henry, yes, sir.
This is my
She's
new best friend, Keith. My new best friend right here.
she is phenomenal. I'm telling you. So her dad, Ron, was in the Marines, and in Vietnam. She does the at the state fair. She's got this military exhibition that she does. Her
That's cool.
dad's uniform has holes in it from Vietnam, but he was never hit. Never hit
Wow.
one time. So the bullet holes just went through the uniform. And so it's, man, I tell you, it's an amazing story. So
That's crazy. I didn't mean to cut you off. I was trying to wrap my head around that one. I'm like,
no, you're good. No, so see, yeah, Heather French Henry is amazing.
that's awesome, man. Keith, I don't know who you got in your circle, but I don't know.
Yeah, no, nothing like that for sure. Yeah, and I just, more about the community. It's just I can never get over how connected and welcoming we are. I mean, like Sean was saying earlier, there's no, yeah, no ill will. There's no competition. Well, there is some competition, but we won't talk about that. But by and large, there isn't. Yeah. So and so with all of your experiences and even your journey from Marine Corps infantryman grunt to running a podcast, spotlighting boots on ground organizations and stuff. What's the biggest gap you noticed uh, in how veterans are actually supported still to this day? You mentioned how we've gotten a lot better, but what do you see as the biggest gaps, and how is Homefront SITREP working to fill that gap?
So the biggest gap that I see, excluding the VA, because we all know the VA, there's good things about the VA and then there's bad things about the VA. So I'm not going to go there. I've had a relatively good experience with the VA, but I think what it is, the gap is you have some veterans out there that had really, really negative experiences, whether it be with a veteran service organization, whether it be with the VA or whatnot. So they pretty much disgruntled themselves away from the veteran community. And then you got others in the veteran communities that's had really, really great experiences, and then they're willing to share that experience with the whole community. So the biggest gap is the ones, let's say per se, the Vietnam veterans. All right. So when they came back, they came home, they had, got spit in the face and all this. So they had negative outlook on the American population as a whole, right? And then you got Desert Storm veterans, you got Iraq and Afghanistan veterans that came home, and they got that warm welcome, that warm fuzzy that they got. Um, so the biggest gap is the disgruntled veterans compared to the veterans of today. How they don't want to, like, if you go to a VFW, you got your Vietnam vets that are running the show, right? they don't want to see change. They like it the way it is, and they want to keep it that way. Well, unfortunately, they're alienating all of the newer veterans that are wanting to be part of VFW, and with the Vietnam veterans not wanting to change, that makes the the Iraq and Afghanistan veterans and Desert Storm veterans not want to be at the VFW. So I think the biggest is that 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 gap there, and in treatment wise. But for Homefront SITREP, what we like to do is we like to highlight the mom and pop, the grassroots nonprofits from around the countries that still sees us as a veteran and not a number. So if you go back over the 2.5 years that I've done this podcast, you'll notice there's probably only one of the big ones that I've interviewed, and that was Mission 22. And that's because he was a Marine. I knew him. He was the national director for the recovery and resiliency program that they have within Mission 22. So it wasn't like the big heads of the organization. It was somebody who was running one of the programs inside. And that's what I love doing, is because if I can reach one veteran for each episode that I do, or one veteran a day, then I've completed my mission for that day, because that's a trickle effect. If I reach out to one, if I can reach one veteran, he's going to reach two veterans, and that's what it's all about.
Oh man, absolutely. And I'll tell you, some of the best interviews or most fun interviews I think we've done through the course of this show, Keith, have been with those state level or the local level type organizations,
Or
because
the
they're
grassroots,
right
yeah.
there in the thick of things. They're
Hmm.
they're not dealing with
Boots
the
on
big
ground, yeah.
money. They're making things happen, and it's just absolutely amazing.
Yeah. So with the grassroots mom and pop type organizations, they tend to get a little nichey. So I'm just curious, what's the weirdest one you've ever, like the weirdest pitch you've ever received for an episode, or the weirdest organization? Like what's some of the wild stuff?
Hmm, that's a good one, man. Over 2.5 years. So I've had here recently. So we do focus on like the veteran nonprofits, and then we also bring in veteran singers, business owners, and stuff like that. I've had some people reach out to me recently that it seems like they want to gain something
Mm,
off the veteran population, and I'm like, hmm, you are a veteran, but yet here you're trying to make a profit.
exploit that, yeah.
Right, and I'm like, I don't know if you're gonna be a good fit for my show. And I'm not gonna call them out, because, they might be listening or watching or whatnot, but, um, I mean, I've had to turn away a few people, and I don't like turning away people, because if they can help the veterans, then I wanna highlight them, right? But if you're gonna exploit, like Keith said, if you're gonna exploit the veteran population, I'm gonna have to turn you away. That's just
Yeah.
I think part of it, and that's, to me, it's almost a mindset. You get to a point where you have a brand, right?
yeah.
And so now you have to kind of protect the brand too. And, you can play with it, adjust it, change the brand a little bit. But at the same time, we've had organizations reach out to us that can't explain why they're not considered a VA shark. It's like, well, if you can't explain to me how you're not, that tells me you are, so, it's things like that, you got to be protective, because you don't want to all of a sudden start having organizations on that are out there ripping off the veteran. And next thing you
Yeah.
know, you get, some crazy brand of, this guy's just going to talk to anybody. He doesn't care.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I got to add, Sean, you're going to hate me for asking, but like, have you been hit up by any of the psychedelic folks lately that have been, I mean, don't get me wrong, there might be useful research out there and they're doing research, but I don't know, we've been having a few folks that want to come on and talk about psychedelics as a treatment.
Yeah, so I've had a few people reach out to me that, and I've had one. No, so take that back. I've had two. So I had a 420 chief, which, if you know what 420 means, he's all about that and pushing legislation for that. And then I had another guy on. I can't remember off the top of my head, but talking about the psychedelic drugs and the research that's been done and it was holistic training too, or holistic healing as well. But it was more about the psychedelics. And granted, I think I'm not opposed. If it works, it works. If it's helping
Yeah,
veterans deal with PTSD, moral injury, and stuff like that, I'm all about it. As long as as long as it's legal, it can't be illegal.
yeah,
But I've had quite a few reach out to me, and
yeah,
it's kind of like, do you want to scatter them or do you want to try to cluster them all together? It's just like, what do you do?
yeah,
Yeah, and I think, the way I sort of approached it, especially after reading one of the books, was, you know, is there a way to get information out there so that people do it smartly or safely if they're
yeah.
trying to do
That's
it?
my
Because,
yeah.
I mean,
Safety is
because
my biggest concern.
yeah, well, we all know from the military, it's very our community tends to go, oh well, Keith has done it and he was fine, so I'll be fine, and never
So
do
go
any
buy a
research
bunch of
whatsoever.
mushrooms and see what happens. See if
Yeah,
I get
Yeah,
better.
yeah. So
yeah.
I'd much rather you learn, understand, and try to do it safely if you're bent on doing it. It's not for me, but if it's going to help somebody, so be it, and we'll see where that whole world goes. But um, okay, so what led you to starting a podcast? Like, was this just this burning desire to do it, or?
No, so in 2020, I resigned from the last nonprofit that I was in. Don't want to go into the details, but um, just say the founder and I had philosophical differences when it came to what you're supposed to be doing at an organization.
Very
So
political way to put it.
yes, so in December 23rd of 2020, I resigned. And or no, not so 2020, and I was like, well, I'm gonna start a podcast, and I didn't know nothing about doing a podcast, so I bought the microphone, I bought the computer, I bought the sound card. It all sat in the basement for about a year and a half, right? It was just collecting dust. And I wasn't volunteering at any organizations because C19 was here, and so I was going kind of stir crazy. I still worked outside every day because of my job, but going out and seeing other veterans and stuff like that, it was hard. So that's where the phone came in handy. I was able to call a lot of these guys that I was friends with and check in on them, make sure they were doing okay. But I was still going stir crazy at home. My wife actually came to me one day and she said, "Hey, bud, you need to do something or we're getting a divorce." Right? And we've been this November be 20 years, and
Congratulations.
thank you. And I was like, okay, I'll start. I'll start the podcast. And I come down and I started researching, all these other veteran podcasters that were out there to see what they were, what they were doing on their shows, to see where my niche was going to be, right? Because that's the most important thing when you start a podcast is you have to find your niche, what you want
Yeah.
to do, what you're knowledgeable about, what you're comfortable with, what you love. And for me, when I was doing that, I was like, man, I know a lot about veteran nonprofits, and I've seen some good ones, I've seen some bad ones, and I've seen good ones start out really good, and then the founder just lose the focus of the organization, and the board, joins along because they're yes men because the founder created something. And so I was like, all right, we're gonna focus on veteran nonprofits. My original co-host, um, she was a Coast Guard veteran, MST survivor. Well, so she was Army first, then she went Coast Guard, MST survivor. And so me and her got on, we started the podcast and we started bringing in the local nonprofits that we knew, like the ones that we trusted. And that, man, it took off like wildfire. Soon as we started, and we grew really quickly. And some people, when you grow really quickly like that at the beginning, people lose focus, and that's where that pod fade comes in. Travis from Oscar Mike Radio will tell you that pod fade will come in where you start off really strong and then boom, you just drop. Well, that's where we had to refocus, slow down just a little bit and say, all right, this is how we're doing it, and and rock and roll with it. And then we got to the point where we were doing 4 episodes a week. And my wife, she's like, "Hey, bud, you can only do two." Because well, she wants me to do one a week, but she's like, two's fine. But I had other people that were running the Tuesdays and Thursdays shows, but they backed out, so I'd have to cover a lot of those episodes, and she was not happy about that. So luckily, I was able to, go back down to two and still carry on the mission because I didn't want to. I don't want to ever get into that spot where it's dragging me down, and then putting a burden on my wife or my kids. Granted, my kids, I got one getting ready to go to college here, August the 13th. She'll be a freshman. And then my youngest is a senior in high school. She'll be going to college next year. So it'll be just the wife and I, and hopefully we can withstand that turbulence, because we're going to be just alone, me and her all the time. So we'll see how it all plays out.
I'd like to take a moment for especially our younger viewers and those maybe early in marriage, the wisdom that this man has shared about listening to the spouse, listening
Yes.
to mama, and making sure you stay in line with that is real. And my wife rolls her eyes every time I start talking about a different show or something like that. And but once again, we've been blessed to have a bunch of people come on board that want to be a part of this and are willing to take on shows. And, so it's been really cool. And because, if I was trying to do all of them myself, we hit 25 next year. And
Nice.
I don't know that we'd hit 25.
Yeah. My wife always threatens me. She goes, "Well, once our youngest graduates and turns 18, she says, I'm gonna divorce you." I don't think it's gonna happen, but I think just that thought alone is like, oh, yes, ma'am. I understand. You got a happy wife, happy life, man. I tell you, and I'm blessed. My wife is amazing. She's my rock. She's pulled me out of some deep holes back in the day, and I wouldn't be who I am now if it wasn't for her. So.
Yep. Nope. I think Keith, you and I can both relate to that one very well. And like me, I'm happy that we jumped that first hurdle, right? So I retired. I've been around the house a lot more for the last 2 years, and we haven't killed each other. So that the first hurdle done. We got one kid who's still in high school, so it'll be a couple years before we're empty nesters, and then we'll see how that hurdle goes. But it's
Well, since we're
definitely
giving shout outs to the wives, and I am in the empty nester for the most part. I mean, one of our kids, he's going to college locally, so he still lives with us, but he's as checked out as they come. And but yeah, my wife, she has to remind me that she served too. And she's like, as a mil spouse, right? She's like, as a military spouse, and she says that because a lot of my efforts and energy if I'm not careful, can be overwhelmingly provided to the military community and the veteran community. And my wife's like, I served too. I deserve your attention too. And I'm like, I know, I love you. So
absolutely.
Did Sean's camera go out?
No,
I'm still here.
Okay, it's on my end. Murphy's at it, Sean. Murphy's at it. I can't see you, so I don't know why.
You got a little gremlin in the computer.
There you're back. I don't know. You're screaming out at me.
Hi, welcome back. Will the real Sean please stand up?
We're not going to do that on camera. Everybody will be looking at my belly button.
I thought you went off camera for some. I don't know.
Yep.
That's I had a question and I lost it. Son of a gun.
Sorry, he's froze now on my end.
Who, me?
Yeah, you're froze on my end.
Oh, good Lord. I have no idea what's going on today.
No, you're not froze on my end.
Sean is on my end. I don't know. It's
okay.
We love Riverside. Let's just say that.
So you talked about having an original co-host, and now you have Gunny with you. And we've done very much the same thing. Where Keith is co-host number 3, and currently the longest running co-host.
Oh, am I now? Okay, I didn't know that.
But no, it's beautiful because everybody who's come on to be a part of this has hey, other things have come up or whatever, so it's never been anything ill or bad, and both the Mark and Eric have come back and guest co-hosted when one of us couldn't make it, and so I love having that family aspect to it. But so tell us a little bit about Gunny since he couldn't make it today.
So Gunny and I met in boot camp. We met on the Yellow Footprints at Paris Island. And then we went through boot camp together. Then we went to School of Infantry together. Then we went to 2nd Battalion, 8th Marines together and served for our first 3 years in the Marine Corps. When I did my lateral move to 1-8 to go on a med float, and that's where Gunny and I kind of separated. We lost track of each other probably for about 15, 20 years, maybe. And then, of course, Facebook, was a big thing, and that we reconnected that way. And we brought Gunny on the show as a guest originally. And we've had him on the show a couple times as a guest because of the different nonprofits that he's involved with, and then also the professional skydive team that he's involved with that has a nonprofit, which is Team Fast Tracks, and then the nonprofit is Blue Skies for the Good Guys and good the good guy Blue Skies for the Good Gals and Girls Warrior Foundation. I had to think how it was worded because
Tongue
it's a
twister.
tongue twister for sure. And then Team Fast Tracks is the professional skydive team, and he's real heavy involved in that. He's the ground safety coordinator, and Gunny is a Purple Heart veteran. He got blown up twice, 40 plus surgeries. And then every now and then he still has to spend 4 to 6 days in the hospital, depending on when it flares up on him and stuff like that. So Gunny and I, when we got reconnected, it was like we never missed a beat. It's that brotherhood that you have in the military. It was like we never lost track of each other, and it's just kind of we picked up. I would have never thought one of my best friends would be from Maine, a New Englander up there, and here I am, a country boy from Kentucky, but it works. And our chemistry between the two of us, even though, he lives up in Independence, Kentucky, which is almost 2 hours away from me. It works. It just works. And he technically is co-host number 3 as well. So I guess the third time's the charm.
There you go.
We do have Candace as well. She's on like a medical hiatus at the present moment in time because she's got MS and stuff like that, and life has kind of kicked her in the butt a little bit. But the door, if she decides, hey, I want to come back, she'll be back on the show. It's just when she's ready, she'll be back. So
I get that, and that's amazing. I didn't know that about Gunny. I mean, I wouldn't have known any of that when I met him when he came through here, and
he don't talk
that's
about it.
fantastic.
Yeah, he don't talk about it.
And he doesn't look any worse for wear either,
Right.
So, like a good deal. So,
Why is it so weird being from New England?
It's not, but as a country boy from Kentucky, man, it's like, but the God puts people in your life when you need them the most, and I was thankful that here Gunny was, we were really, really close in the Marine Corps, and then we lost track of each other, and then in time of need, here he is. So
Yeah.
I think somewhere it's written in law that if you become friends with a New Englander and you're a Southerner, you automatically become a Yankee too. So I don't know.
Oh, you better get out of
Honorary Yankee.
Get out of here. Uncle Sam wants you back. All right.
Yeah.
Well, that would make you a Yankee then, there, Sean, because I'm from the North. But anyway.
my parents are from Massachusetts, man. It's
okay.
So you're born a Yankee. All right.
I was actually born in Puerto Rico. Let's throw that wrench in there at the Navy Hospital.
So does that make you Latino?
Yeah.
Honorary Latino, yeah. See, I married a Latina, so I'm an honorary.
There you go.
An STL, I say, and a sexually transmitted Latino. But
nice.
All right. We're at time, guys.
I'd never heard that one.
Yeah. So, well, she's an STI, sexually transmitted Italian. So,
nice.
But all right, guys,
we're off the rails.
Yeah, we're off the rails and we're at time. But before we wrap this up, David, 2 questions. One, straight talk, like, veterans and spouses, especially in this podcast space, because there's a lot of us out there nowadays, we can get a little burnt out on the programs and the red tape and all that other kind of stuff. So first thing is, what is your most unfiltered, just do this next advice, no matter how messy it is? What is your advice to the community, at hand in transition? And then second, how do people get in touch with you?
All right. So first off, never give up. All right. So if you're going through the VA process, don't give up. The VA is designed, unfortunately, it's designed to make us get frustrated and to quit. So never quit, never quit. And hashtag be somebody's stranger. And what I mean by that is we as humans, we're more apt to talk to a complete stranger than the ones we love the most. So be somebody's stranger. If you're out and about and you see somebody that's having a bad day, go up to them and say, hey, how you doing? And if they give you the red flags, I'm okay, I'm living a dream, I'm hanging in there, something of that nature, ask the next hard question. How are you really doing? Because that's when you're going to find out how they're really doing. But be ready for that conversation. Could be an 8-minute conversation, could be a friggin' 8-hour conversation. You just have to be ready for that. And then find your tribe, find your purpose. It might take you 20 years to find your purpose, but search for it and keep searching for it until you find your purpose and find your tribe for sure. That's the first thing that you need to do is find your tribe. And once you find your tribe, they're going to help guide you along the way. You never know. You might find somebody that's a Vietnam veteran, Desert Storm veteran, that's going to show you the way, the path to your purpose. So do that. And then getting in contact with me, you can go to homefrontsitrep.com. You can connect with us there. You can find us on Facebook. You can give me a phone call, 502-435-3515. My phone's always open to veterans, so you can reach out to me there, or you can email us at homefrontsitrep@homefrontsitrep.com.
Nice. I love it when people give their phone numbers out, because then I'm wondering like how many AIs are picking up on that. You're going to start getting spam calls like crazy, telemarketer calls like crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I get calls all the time, and my wife knows that if my phone rings at 3:00 in the morning, I'm pretty much going to answer it if it's a
Yeah.
veteran.
Yeah.
If it's a spam, I'm going to hit deny. But if it's an unknown number, I'm going to answer it.
Yeah, no, that's great stuff, David. Thanks so much for coming on the show and for all that you do for our community. Absolutely love having you as a brother in this circle. So, and for everybody listening, on behalf of the entire VET S.O.S family, we'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. VET S.O.S is growing and spreading its wings. You can follow us on all the social media platforms. Make sure to check out all 4 of our shows and to follow and subscribe to us wherever you get your podcast from. We're on YouTube, Reach Across America Radio, Parade Deck, and all the other goodies out there. And what's so funny, Sean? And as always, folks, don't drown in the sea of transition. Grab the VET S.O.S Lifeline.
Thanks for having me.